This part. Uh, 11.
Organizational conflict. What we are not. 1 year from now. So today we will be discussing on organizational conflict, what it is and how it is to be managed. Because when two or more persons come together, there is bound to be differences of opinion, and therefore there is bound to be conflict. That conflict should not get resulted into a grievance, and grievance into dispute. When it becomes a dispute, then for both the employer and the employee, such a dispute becomes very costly out there. And therefore, when it is at the conflict level itself, it needs to be resolved amicably. So that, as I said, that conflict may be both positive and negative conflict. So positive conflict is just a discussion, and maybe people have different opinions, but that will contribute new ideas and may result in better solution to the problem that is being discussed. Negative conflict is mainly many a times individual. People take criticism individually, or people criticize individually, not the concept, not the idea, and then that may become dangerous. And so, organizational conflict, or in any organization, at any level, it may be at any level, it may be at the grassroots level, that is, workers level, it may be at the top level, even board of directors. So conflict may be anywhere because, as I said, two individuals think in a different way, look at the situation in a different way. They have their own experience, they have their own ideas about handling or tackling that kind of a situation. And therefore, whatever others are saying or whatever other individuals are contributing, there may be differences of opinion, and therefore this conflict may result. Now, it's a very natural phenomenon. Even at home, we have conflicts. It's not that, so it is an extended family, as I'm telling you right from beginning. So organizations are extended family, and so when two individuals come together, there is bound to be some differences of opinion about how to handle a particular situation or what decision needs to be taken and what considerations are necessary for making that particular decision. And so today we will be discussing about this conflict, what it is, and how to manage uh, the conflict, organizational conflict. Uh, what is the definition of uh, conflict? It is a process that begins when one party perceives that another party has affected or is about to negatively affect something the first party cares about. So A and B, two persons are there. And when they are discussing on a particular situation, how to make the decision. So A perceives the situation in a different way, B perceives it in a different way. And A feels or that whatever B is thinking about will negatively affect A's career or A's life or whatever. And therefore, this process begins, the conflict process begins at that point of time. So why conflict is there? Because one party, there are two parties always, as I said, minimum two parties. So one party starts perceiving another party is affecting or is about to negatively affect for something which the first party cares about. And that conflict process starts at that particular level. So the interaction becomes a disagreement. As I said that the interaction between the two persons, it becomes a disagreement. Why that disagreement is there? Because every person, individual has a different opinion about uh, what it should be or what should be done or what should not be done. So as we have seen perception, so every party perceives the situation in a different manner, and therefore there may be disagreement which may start or which is the starting point of conflict. So in organization, a lot of conflicts are there because of incompatibility of goals, differences in interpretation of facts, disagreements or behavioral expectations. So the superior expects the subordinate to behave in a particular way. The subordinates behave in a different way, and the subordinate perceives that whatever he or she is behaving is natural or correct, but the superior feels that that is not correct. Or incompatibility of goals. Very high goals are set, and subordinates or the superior even feel that these goals are not achievable. So they are not compatible with the goals, and so there is a disagreement. So there can be any reasons for this kind of a disagreement or what we can say is differences of opinion, which ultimately results in conflict. Now, the question arises whether conflict is good or bad. As I said, there are certain conflicts which may turn, if they are not resolved, if they may come result into grievance, and if that grievance is also not addressed, it becomes a dispute. So this is a bad conflict. So which ultimately results into bitterness among the relationship between the two parties. But we have different opinions about whether the conflict is good or bad. So there are two types of conflicts. One is called as functional conflict. Now, functional conflict, as I said, is the conflict that is very healthy discussion, a healthy disagreement, as I can say. We disagree, but then the relationship still prevails. The disagreement may be relating to the goal settlement, the disagreement may be related to the behavior pattern or any other way, but that does not endanger or that does not hamper the performance of the group. This is functional conflict. This is very objectively discussed and not subjectively. Subjective discussion is criticizing the individual or criticizing the behavior of the individual or criticizing the ideas of the individual. But in functional conflict, what happens is that it supports. It is a healthy conflict in the sense that people argue, they may disagree on certain things, but ultimately they come to the consensus. And therefore, this is a constructive form of conflict. This conflict may result in a better performance of the group because this disagreement gives way for new ideas to be generated and new solutions may be found out in order to resolve the situation or resolve the problem that is confronting the group. For example, a debate among members of a work team about the most effective way to improve production can be functional if unique point of view are discussed and compared openly. So how to improve the production? If this discussion is going on and if that discussion gives people or those who are in participating, the group that is participating in this discussion, people may give constructive suggestions how to improve the production, and this can be a functional conflict which improves the performance of the group as a whole. And therefore, functional conflict, as I said, mainly it is a objective discussion on the situation or on the problem that is being confronted by the group. Now, there is a destructive conflict also. This is constructive conflict, as we said. Functional conflict is a constructive conflict. Now, there can be destructive conflict also. This is difunctional conflict. This is personal struggle between the two parties. Subjective, as I said, subjective, particularly control in a team or such matters where the personal comments are made or where individually people are criticizing each other and thereby spoiling their relations. Now, this kind of a conflict is the destructive conflict because it hampers the relationship among the group members and therefore ultimately it hampers the group performance as well. And therefore these are relationship conflicts. What is the control area of a person or authority area of a person, we can say that. Or in such a case, whether any other person or one person is encroaching upon the power or authority of another person. So these are mainly relationship conflicts and they may result into conflicts which distract the group from the group and which distract the group from performing better. And therefore, this is what is called as destructive conflict. The relationship conflict is destructive or dysfunctional. Considerably less agreement about whether the task and process conflict within the group correlated to higher group performance. There are factors, conflict that could create relationship between conflict and performance. So, there is a relationship between the conflict and the performance, as we have seen. In functional conflict, for example, the performance increases. In destructive dysfunctional conflict, the performance may come down. So, whether conflict is destructive or constructive, whether the conflict included top management or occurred lower in the organization, where that conflict occurs, that also decides whether it is a personal or whether it is a constructive or it is a destructive conflict. So, Personalities of the team also, they matter a lot. And so one study demonstrated that teams of individuals who are on average high in openness and emotional stability, they have less conflicts because they are understanding each other's opinions, ideas, and therefore they don't take it personally. And so, in such the personalities of the team members, it matters a lot. If they are open for discussion and if they are emotionally stable, we have seen emotional intelligence. So, if they are emotionally stable, then they may accept the criticism sportingly, and that may not spoil the relationship. So whatever discussion is going on in the meeting room, once they go out from the meeting room, again they are friends. Not that they are enemies because they disagree on certain points. And so when the personalities of the team members are such, then less conflicts are there, and those the conflicts are less, or if they are there, they are constructive conflicts, and therefore the performance of the team may increase. So, what are the, and therefore you will find that by selecting the team members, the manager or the top management has to be careful that what are the we have seen the personality types also. So what type of personalities we are selecting to form a team? That is very important because if their conflict results into a grievance, then the problem may not be resolved or the performance of that particular team may not be up to the mark. The conflict process. 5 stages are there in the conflict process. Okay, potential opposition or incompatibility, cognition and personalization, intentions, behavior, and outcome. These are the 5 steps. So, conflict, we are studying conflict in a very systematic manner. We just see the outcome, but behind that outcome, there are so many things which are happening. So, stage 1 is potential opposition. So, what can be the potential opposition in a given situation? So, causes or sources that create opportunity for conflict to come. These conditions not lead directly to conflict, but one of them is necessary if it is to surface. So, at times, what happens is that the causes may be there or sources of conflict may be there, but necessarily the person may keep quiet, as we have seen in teams, we have seen loafing and all those things. So, though there is a difference of opinion, a particular of some individuals may keep mum, that let other members discuss it. So there may be source, but there may not be conflict. But when these causes or these sources, they come to the surface. When one person opens the mouth, then conflict starts. And so the conditions may be grouped in 3 general categories. So what are those conditions which can cause conflict? So there are 3: communication, structure, and personal variables. Now communication can be a source of conflict. Misunderstanding. Why you have used this particular word, or you are not talking to me in a proper tone. Or this you should have told me personally why you have told me on phone or why you have emailed me. So communication may be a source of conflict. So when personal communication is there, as I have said, the tone, the words, the expressions while communicating that particular sentence, tone or word may not be harsh, but the body language of the concerned person may not be matching with what he's saying. So, or when there are certain things when the superior is expecting the subordinate to report personally and the subordinate just gives one me. So, communication is one cause or source from where the conflict may start. These factors, along with jargon and insufficient information, can be barrier to communication and may be potential. So many a times insufficient information is given in a team meeting. The team leader may give insufficient information. And that may also, so communication includes all these things. Many a times too much communication also gives rise to conflict. So what is to be told and what is not to be told. So too much of communication also increases conflict. So this is one reason, one cause for conflict to arise. So the leader, the team leader or the team members, they should understand what they should talk, what they should not talk, how much information is necessary to be given, what information they can avoid to give. So all these things, so communication becomes the most crucial part for starting point of conflict. Then structure. Size of the group, for example, if the group size is too big or degree of specialization in the task assigned to group members or jurisdiction clarity, what is the jurisdiction of that group? Member goal compatibility, whether all the members have understood the goal in the same terms, are they compatible with the goal? Or leadership style, what leadership style the team member or team leader is adopting. We have seen the leadership styles. Degree of dependence between the group, how far the group members are interdependent on each other. Unless one completes his task, the another group member is unable to do the task. In that case, the conflict, that is the source of conflict. And so there are many things, that is size of the group. If the size of the group is too big, then also, or if it is too small, then also the source of conflict may be. The larger the group and more specialized activity, the greater likelihood of conflict. So if the group is too large and specialized activities are there for every group member, in a for example, in a cricket team, a very specialized activity is there, a bowler, a batsman. So specialized activities there. And if a batsman is trying to tell the bowler something, the bowler will say that I know my job. You need not tell me. So this may have the more specialized activities. If all the team members they are specialists in their own activities, then also that may become a source of conflict. So potential for conflict is greatest when the group members are younger and when the turnover is high. When in an organization, this is a very important aspect. When the labor turnover ratio of the company is very high, conflict is more, because when people stay for a longer period of time with the organization, they form the group quite often to solve the situations or to complete a particular task. And therefore, over a period of time, they are working together in a group or in a team, and so they understand each other very well. And therefore, less conflicts are there. But if the turnover is very high and every time you have a different group member or different team members in the group, then, and that too if they are younger, then the conflict is high, because members do not know each other personally very well. And therefore, the conflict is maybe more higher side in such a situation. And so when we talk about labor turnover, one of the important aspects to be considered is in a company where there is higher labor turnover, more conflicts. And so the companies try to keep the turnover as less as possible. See to it that people stay with the organization for a fairly long period of time. If not like long like in the olden days, but at least fairly long, 10 to 15 years at least. Otherwise, what happens in today's scenario, within a year or two, people leave the job. And new people come up, new groups are formed, new teams are formed. and in that case, the conflict may be on the higher side. So this is about the second aspect, and that is structure. And third is personal variables, like personality of the person, emotions, value systems. So those people who have the personality trait like disagreeable people or self-monitoring, they are prone to tangle with other people more often and react poorly, and conflict may occur. So disagreeable people or self-monitored people, we have seen the traits. So these people, this kind of people, if they are in the group, then the conflict is more. Emotions. So some people are very short tempered. They are not emotionally mature people, and therefore, for small things also, for small disagreements also, they become emotional, and this may give rise to conflict or value system of the individual. So, if that conflicts or if that is not matching with the team members' opinion, then also conflict may. And so, communication, structure, and personal variables. These are the three main causes or sources of conflict. The stage two is cognition and personalization. If the condition cited in stage one negatively affects something one party cares about, then potential for opposition or incompatibility becomes actualized in the second stage. So, if in the first stage, due to communication, structure, or personal variables, whatever, if any of these is negatively affected on any one person in the group for which he cares for, suppose values. So, the person cares for his value system, and the team is talking something which is not fitting into the value system of the person concerned. Then stage two occurs. And so because then there is incompatibility and there is opposition. And therefore the conflict becomes actualized. In the first stage, the conflict is just first process has started, but in the second stage, it becomes actualized. So just because the disagreement is perceived, it may not mean that that conflict becomes personalized. It is a felt conflict level when individuals become emotionally involved and they experience anxiety, frustration, hostility. So individually, the person may feel frustrated that this group is not, or whatever they are discussing, the ideas that they are giving, it is not fitting into my value system. So this is felt conflict. I feel that there is a disagreement, or the person feels that there is a disagreement, and the person becomes anxious or frustrated at times hostile. And so this is the second stage of conflict. Stage two is very important because here the conflict is defined by the persons, by the individuals. So here really the individuals understand what is the conflict about. Is it about communication? Is it about structure? Is it about personal values or personal variables? So here in the second stage, the conflict is clearly defined. What type of conflict it is? People tend to default to cooperating strategies in interpersonal interactions unless there is a clear signal that they are faced with a competitive person. So, competition among the group members is also one way, or emotional plays also may play a role in framing the perceptions. Value system, as I said, so or emotional that he's uttered that word and I'm hurt. So this is emotional play. So negative emotions allow oversimplified issues, lose trust, and so people may lose, the group members lose trust, mutual. See how the team works, as we have seen in team building, that team building or teams work with mutual trust. Unless there is mutual trust, no team can perform and no team can function. But if they lose trust or negative interpretations are put on what the person has said, the person may not mean that, but interpretations are made in such a way by the person that they are negative. And then the person may say that I never knew that. But another person may perceive that particular word or that particular sentence or that particular idea against his what he cares for, against his personal variables or against his authority, for example, and therefore negative emotions like this they hinder or they end in losing the trust among the team members, which may result in conflict. In contrast, positive emotions. So there are positive emotions also. Take a broader view of the situation and develop innovative solutions. So positive emotions. So instead of interpreting, now suppose one of the group members says something which hurts the another group member. The another group member may look at those particular words, not taking it individually, and may say that this person has that kind of personality trait. I know that he doesn't mean to hurt. This is positive. Okay. Many times this does not happen, but I'm giving you the example. And so, if there is a positive emotion, if you interpret it in a positive way, then the group may function. Then you look at the situation in a broader way. Forget it, the issue before the team is very serious. And so whatever that person has said, let it go. Concentrate on the task. This is positive emotion. Instead of fighting on those words and distracting from the situation that is before the group, taking a broader view of the situation, letting that go and concentrating on the situation that is before the group. And this is what is positive emotion. And this will not result in stage 3, intentions. Again, the same thing. Emotions, perception is important. So, intentions are distinct stage because we have to infer the others intend to know how to respond to it. So, the person A has said something. Now, B has to understand what is the intention behind that. What is the intention behind that? Suppose father tells the son that don't drive your vehicle beyond 60, speed of 60. Now, potential, because the son may interpret this in different ways. Okay, so intention needs to be perceived from. So the son has to understand what is the intention of my father when he is telling me. Instead of that, if the son starts shouting at father, don't teach me for last 10 years I'm driving and who are you to tell me and this is the modern era and we cannot drive 60, that is you because you are old. So what you are trying to tell, you are trying to disrupt or misconceive the intention of the person. And so it is necessary. Many conflicts escalate because one party attributes wrong intention to another. As I said, that many times we just say something, we don't mean it or we don't intend to hurt the person concerned. but the other person perceives it as a deliberate act, as a deliberate trigger to end or to enter into the conflict. And therefore, intentions. Many a times, there is a mismatch between intention and behavior. And so, behavior does not always reflect a person's intention accurately. So, if the father is takes and then he asks the mechanic that put a what they put a speed locker for 60. Now, behavior, this is behavior. Intention is different. Intention is good, but the son perceives it in a different, and therefore intentions need to be understood and perceived properly. There are two dimensions of intentions. Assertiveness, the degree to which one party attempts to satisfy him or her own concerns, and cooperativeness. So, assertiveness is son agreeing or understanding that, okay, this is the intention of my father. So, this assertiveness. And second is cooperativeness. So, he says, he assures his father that, okay, I will not drive my car beyond 60. So, this is cooperativeness. So, it is how it, this is how it is assertiveness and cooperativeness. Now, five conflict handling intentions. How to handle the intentions? One is competent, assertive, and uncooperative. First is the person agrees. Son may agree, but he is not cooperative. He will drive the vehicle beyond 60. When one person seeks to satisfy his own interest, regardless of the impact on the other party in the conflict. So the son satisfies his own wish that he wants to drive at a fast speed. So he is assertive. He says that, okay, I know that I agree to you. He will not say anything or he will not question the intention, but he will not cooperate also. So, assertive but uncooperative. Collaborative, assertive and cooperative, both. So, he is assertive also and he will cooperate also. In collaborating, parties intend to resolve the problem by clarifying the differences rather by accommodating various point of view. So, collaborating is if you find out a win-win situation that allows both the parties to be happy. That is collaborating. So, when they collaborate, two parties collaborate, they find out the midway both, and that is collaborating. So the son says that, okay, on the highway I will not increase my speed beyond 60. So highways at least I'm asserting, I'm agreeing with you and cooperating. So this is how this is collaborating. Third is avoiding, both unassertive and uncooperative. A person recognizes the conflict exists and want to withdraw from or suppress it, trying to ignore the conflict. So the son will just look at father and just go away. Will not say anything. Avoid the conflict. So just go away from the person with whom you decide. This is avoiding conflict. Fourth is accommodating. I don't agree with you, but I cooperate. Unassertive but cooperative. Right?
Screen. Chat. Share करेंगे
Slide is not moving.
share
Yes, sir.
ये share करेंगे right bottom
Okay. So accommodating is unassertive but forward. I don't agree with you, but I will do. So the person, a party who seeks to appease an opponent by maybe willing to place the opponent's interest above his or her own, sacrificing to maintain the relationship. So I want to maintain the relationship between father and son, as a father and a son. And therefore, even though I don't agree, I'm not agreeing with you unnecessarily, but I will go on. This is economic. Okay. So maybe I have reservations about your opinion, but still considering our relationship, I or I'll go on. This is accommodating. And last is compromising. Both assertiveness and cooperativeness. There is no winner or loser. Each party intends to give up something. So both the parties, they are ready to give up something. So the father would say, okay, I would request you that you should not exceed the speed limit on the highway. So he has given up his, otherwise he has given a blanket direction that no speed, exceeding speed above 60. Now here compromising. So each party gives up something. So there is compromise between the two parties about whatever is the cause of the conflict. Okay, so these are the 5 ways handling intentions. Fourth is behavior. Now, when there is a conflict and when it becomes visible, then we come to the 4th stage of behavior. Behavior includes maybe actions, maybe words, maybe statements, whatever. So behavior stage includes all these things. Maybe by the person may not say anything, but the person will act in a particular way. Or the person may make certain statements. Or the person may react verbally also. So as a result of miscalculations or unskilled enactment, overt behavior sometimes deviate from original intention. Stage 5 is a dynamic process of interaction. So stage 5 is behavior. So here the conflict becomes visible. For example, you make a demand on me, I respond by arguing, you threaten me, I threaten you back, and so on. So behavior, conflict is seen in behavior. Okay. So intentions that are brought into a conflict are eventually translated into behavior. So how do you handle the intentions? That will decide how the behavior is. Strikes, riots, wars fall in this range. Behavior. So you threaten me, I also threaten you, and it goes on. So conflict that reach this upper range are almost destructive. So when the conflicts become visible in behavior, they are dysfunctional, they are destructive. They may result in strikes, riots, or wars. This is behavior. The last or stage 5. 4th stage is behavior, and the last stage is outcome. So the behavior ultimately creates consequences. These consequences are dysfunctional or destructive. Because what is the functional outcome? How might conflict at the levels to increase group performance? It is hard to measure. Conflict is constructive. Again, I have given the same thing, constructive and destructive conflict. So outcomes, if the conflict is constructive, the outcome is also constructive. The outcome is quality of decisions. The outcome is improved performance. But if the outcome is dysfunctional or destructive, then it may hamper the performance of the group. So outcome will depend on what type of conflict it is, whether it is constructive or whether it is destructive conflict. Now, what are the destructive outcomes? The destructive consequences of conflict on performance are generally well known. So, the destruction of the group, the relationship among the group members become very, they don't trust each other, and ultimately the group may get dissolved also. Poor communication, reduction in group's cohesiveness, subordination of group goals to personal goals. So all these are the destructive outcomes of the conflict. If the conflict is destructive, conflict can bring group functioning to halt. As I said, at the most, the most worst consequence or outcome is the group survival is at stake. Now, what are the causes of conflict? Cause the conflict may be intrapersonal or the conflict may be internal to the person. Intrapersonal or internal to the person. Intrapersonal conflict is between two or more individuals, simple. Group conflict arises between two or more groups. So, intra-individual conflict. Now, this conflict is within the individual himself or herself. Intra-individual conflict within himself or herself. Now, when this occurs, goal conflict, when the individual has to choose between two or more competing goals. So, whether I should stay with this company or I should leave and search for another job. Interpersonal conflict within myself. So, so between two minds, as we can say. So one mind may say that you have a job, so without getting another job, don't leave it. Another mind says, unless you leave this job, how you will get another good job? So this is goal common. What is my goal? In this company, I don't see any future for me. But what is the guarantee that you will get a new job where you will have personal goals satisfied? So this is going on all the time in the person. Approach to approach conflict. When the individual has to choose between mutually conflicting goals. So I have this university also and that university also in US where I got the admission. Both the universities are good. Both the goals are attractive. And it becomes difficult to choose between the two goals. So a student may desire to go for higher studies, or in an organization, the person may be given an option by the management that you will be promoted, but you will have to go to another place. And otherwise, you stay here. Now, both are attractive. You want to stay here because you are here in the present plan for a long period, so you have friends, you are compatible with all of them. But promotion. So both the goals are equally attractive. You have your family, difficult to shift the family because maybe the children are studying. So both the goals are attractive. And difficult to choose between these two goals. This is approach to approach conflict. Approach avoidance conflict. where the individual is faced with the alternatives, which has both positive and negative aspects. So, as I said, what are the positive aspects and what are the negative aspects of that? Then avoidance. So, mutually exclusive negative goals are in front of the individual. So, both, for example, you have to go there, and there you will have on the same position. You have to transfer will be there, and it will be on the same position. So, then whether I should continue with the company or leave the company. So, if I leave the company, I don't have another job. So, negative. If I go there on the same position, my salary will remain the same, and that particular city has a higher standard of living. So, how I can manage my expenses? So, exclusive negative goals are there, and so avoidance. The person tries to avoid. Then role conflict. As we see that we have seen role in group. So role, what role the person is expected to play, and that is another important reason or cause for that conflict, intra-conflict. Role ambiguity. Individual is unsure about his duties and responsibilities regarding the job. No clear-cut job description is given. And so the person is not very sure about what role he has to play. Person-role conflict. The person is given a job which is against his belief or against his value system, for example. So that is personal. Then inter-role conflict. The individual is asked to perform a task for which the individual may lack capability or knowledge. Some task is assigned for which the person is not trained. The person doesn't have knowledge for that. Now, in that situation also, intra-personal conflict will be there. Inter-sender role conflict. When two or more parties put different role demand. So you have two commands. The person has two commanding officers. And one commanding officer is giving one instruction, another is given another instruction, and both the instructions are conflicting. Then the person, the individual, is confused as to how or what he has to do, which role or which role he has to play, and therefore this is inter-sender conflict. So these are what intrapersonal conflicts. Interpersonal conflicts, it is very simple. We have discussed this many times. Personality characteristics. So what are the personality traits of the two persons? That if both are very aggressive, for example, both are A type of personality, then the conflict may arise. All the chances are there. And so personality characteristics of the team members that may result in interpersonal conflict. Perceptions, how the team members perceive the situation, as we have seen in perception. Then differing interest. So the two parties may have different interests. They look at the situation not only in a different manner, but they have different interest in that party, in resolving that particular situation. Poor communication. Both of them, they are not able to communicate properly what they really want to say, as we have seen communication. So communication, they choose a wrong channel, they choose wrong words, they choose wrong sentences. So they choose wrong language, whatever it is. So poor communication. And the last one is scarce resources. So when the group is assigned a particular task to perform, it is the duty of the management to give or to make available adequate resources to perform those duties. But at times, the resources are scarce. And therefore, when the conflicting interest or when the group members they come together for resolving a particular situation, suppose different departmental heads are there. Now, there is a scarcity of resources, money, for example, how much outlay, how much money will get every department. So, for example, like a country like ours, how much will be given to education and what should be given to the agriculture, for example, or for industry. For example, if education is getting very less resources, then there is bound to be the conflict among the ministers. Minister of Education and Minister of Industry may argue with each other and they may have interpersonal conflict. So scarce resources this is another reason for interpersonal conflict. Then group conflict. Between the two groups in an organization at a given point of time, different groups are functioning. So different groups may enter into conflict. So what are these causes? Incompatible goals and interests. So between the two goals, between the two groups, the goals may be incompatible or they may have different interests. Task interdependence. One group is dependent on another group's performance. Scarcity and allocation of resources, as I have told you. Organizational ambiguities. What is the structure? What is the authority, power of authority for each group? So there are two groups, A and B. So what is the authority power of A group and B group? Are they equal state? Do they have equal status? Or whether A group has more authority and they can overrule the decisions taken by the B group? What it is. So if this is not made very clear, if there is ambiguity in that, then also the conflict will be there and resistance to change. Many of times between the two groups, because there is task interdependence, the groups have to change their process or they will have to change the style of working which they are adopting. Not this change. Naturally, nobody likes. We will come to the resistance to change, but then nobody likes this, and therefore, in a group, between the groups, the conflict is because of resistance to change. Managing conflicts. So, conflicts, both positive and negative effects. So, there are two approaches. Conflict resolution strategies may be accommodating. You win, I lose. So, okay, you are right. And I agree with you. This style focuses on resolving conflicts by allowing the desire of other prevail at the expense of personal needs. So, even though I'm not agreeing, still I accommodate because I don't want any negative effect on the group performance because of our conflict. So, this is accommodating. So, you will. I give you, I agree with you. So maybe accommodating, avoiding. Another strategy is avoiding, lose-lose. People show indifference towards the God. So there is a conflict, so let us not meet at all. Or even though we meet, we don't come to any conclusion. Don't take any action. So the group performance is adversely affected by avoiding the conflict. Competitive, I will do this. So I have to bid and I will not agree. High on asset payments and low on cooperative. Person tries to win at the expense of others. So other individuals in the group may not agree to what I am saying, but still I use my authority. And I try to राम मंदिराचा मंगळ प्रवेश त्याचं पूजन पेपर राम मंदिराचा मंगळ. So, person tries to win at the expense of others. Okay, compromising, win some, lose some. So I will also तुझाही नको माझाही नको चल पण हे असं असतं. that is win some, lose some. So moderate level of assertiveness and cooperation, collaborative. So I also win and you also win. So we will find out how we can come to one solution which gives honor to your wish also and my wish. So this is collaborative, which is equally beneficial to both the parties. Functional conflict should be stimulated because functional conflict is constructive conflict and therefore it should be encouraged. So manager, how this can be stimulated? So manager may stimulate conflict by using grapevine intelligently. So grapevine communication can be used intelligently in order to stimulate the conflict. So maybe planting rumors. So a rumor that maybe in the next quarter, the company may start a new incentive scheme. So, and then let us start discussion on that. So let us start conflict. So this is stimulating. A manager may introduce competition among employees by use of rewards. So excellent performance, incentives and things. So this may also increase the conflict. So this is constructive conflict we are talking. Bringing an outsider who possesses different attitudes. So instead of making a leader from within the group, bringing somebody from outside the group. So he brings with him new attitudes and values which may mistake conflict among the group members. Or the old groups may be dissolved and new groups may be started. So this is also stimulation conflict. So this is all about what we were talking about, organizational conflict. Okay. Now the next topic is not in the middle.
Folder work.
खालच्या बार इथे क्रोम आहे त्याच्या साईडला
दूसरी की भी
दूसरे PPT, हाँ. Organizational culture. Culture. Yeah, organization.
स्लाइड मध्ये करते आणि मग शेअर करते.
शेअर करायला लागेल.
आता 68 च्या बाजूला शेअर करावं.
शेअर करायला लागेल. So next topic is going to be the last one that we are going to discuss is organizational culture. We talk a lot about culture. What is culture? What do you mean by culture?
of values and purposes.
Yeah, set of values, norms, assumptions. So they, just as every society has culture, every family has culture. In the same way, every organization also has culture. Every organization may have its own value system, beliefs, assumptions, norms, which govern how the members of that organization should behave. So if you are a employee of a particular organization, there is a norm, or there is a assumption that you will behave in a particular way. So that is culture. These expectations, this is called as culture. Expectations as if you belong to a particular family, then you are expected to behave in a particular, act in a particular way. So this is culture. So every organization has its own culture. And it may have, or it has definitely effect on the attitudes and behavior of the organizational members, but very difficult to measure sometimes. Today we have many questionnaire and many organizations do measure this, that how far the organization culture is imbibed by the members of the organization, and whether they really work and whether they really behave in the norms or in the way if they are expected to behave. So, what is the definition of organizational culture? It is a system of shared meaning held by members that distinguishes the organization from other organizations. So, there is a difference between the two organizations. You can search. Now, what is the organizational culture of Infosys, for example, and what is the organizational culture of TCS, for example? So, compare these two cultures, they are different. Good or bad, they are not going into that, but they are different. And therefore, you will find that every organization has, and therefore TCS is different from Infosys. Why one organization is different from another organization? Because they have different cultures. Though they are in the same business, TCS and Infosys, they are in the same business, but they have different cultures, and therefore they stand alike, or they stand differently, as I can say. This system of shared meaning includes values, beliefs, and assumptions that characterize the organization. So, this is what is the meaning of culture. Now, what is the essence of organizational culture? The first is adaptability. To what extent the employees are encouraged to be innovative and flexible, as well as to take the risk and experiment. So, what is the culture of the organization? In some organizations, the culture is such that it is very autocratic culture, as we can see, and do as we say. And in some organizations, they allow the employees to be experimenting, though there is some risk involved in that. So the degree, so adaptability is the essence of culture. Detail orientation, the degree to which employees are expected to exhibit precision, analysis, and attention to detail. I have given you the example yesterday. So attention to details. So if you are writing a mail, for example, in an organization, suppose you are writing a mail to your colleague or to your superior, then attention to details. What words are you including? Whether you are including the subject, whether you are including your opinions as to what, and that too very precisely and very clearly. So attention to detail is very important. We don't give attention to detail. Even if you write one application, for example, are you giving attention to the details? Are you writing the application in the format, in the norms, the right hand side you must have the date, for example. you must have the subject. To whom you are writing, the complete designation or whatever it is. And so attention to details is very important. Precision in working. Result outcome orientation, the degree to which management focuses on results or outcomes rather than on technical processes used to achieve them. So, in some organizations, they say that we want results. We are not concerned how you achieve, how you give us that result. Some organizations focus on both. That is the culture. So, the family may have a culture that all the family members have outstanding academic careers. So the next generation children in the family also must have outstanding uh, academic career. Now that is culture of the family, but all individuals are not like. So the next generation children may not be good in academics. He may be good in some other, but academics matters a lot for them. Then the child may resort to some methods like copying, for example. Now, what is the family is interested in getting good academic career or good academic score. How you get it? We are not. Some organizations are like that they are result oriented. We want the result. We don't matter. It doesn't matter what processes you are following. So that is another example. People customer orientation. The degree to which management decisions consider the effect of outcome on people within and outside the organization. So a particular decision is taken. For example, what will be the effect of that decision? Or what will be the outcome of that decision, and that outcome, how it will affect the customers, maybe within and outside the organization. Team orientation, the degree to which work activities are organized around the team rather than individuals. In some organizations, mainly the functioning is through teamwork. In some organizations, mainly the work is individual. For example, a research laboratory may have individual scientists working on that. Or in some laboratories, it is required that a team of researchers, they work. So what kind of, how far the team culture is there? Then integrity, the degree to which people exhibit integrity and high ethical standard in their work. So this is very important. Integrity, the how far that person is concerned with his work, how ethical he or she is in performing or in using certain methods in performing that particular work. Employee orientation, concern for people, as we have seen in the grid. So some organizations are employee oriented. Some organizations consider their employees as their slaves. So what is that orientation? That will decide the culture. Basis of motivation. What motivational tools are used by the organization to motivate the employees? External orientation. So how far the employees or how far the management has external orientation where they give their employees an opportunity to go for training and aggressiveness. How far the management is aggressive or power distance. So particularly, for example, in police or in army, there is a power distance. So that is the culture of army. Can that work in organizations? So though military defense is an organization, it has a different culture, and a manufacturing company will have a different culture. That is power distance. Mainly the differences in power distance. So these are the various aspects of culture. Determinants of culture. What determines the culture of the organization? Organizational economic conditions. So, what is the present? What is the present economic condition of the company or of the organization? So, correct.
Like that. Right there.
So, what is the economic condition of the organization? If the economic condition of the organization is poor, they will try to achieve the results by any means, and that will decide the culture of the organization. If the economic condition is good, then means will also matter and they will not bother much about results. Organizational structure, as I said, power distance. How far the organization is autocratic or participative, that will also decide the culture. Organizational size. In small organizations, the culture is different, and in bigger organizations, the culture is different. In small organizations, more personal relations are there. Suppose only 50 employees are working, then it will have a different kind of a culture. It will have different norms. But when 5,000 employees are working, then different norms are set. So size of the organization, organizational policies. For example, some organizations, now as you know, some organizations may say that we don't recruit women. So gender balance. Now that becomes the culture of the organization. That becomes the culture of the people who are working in the organization. Management values. Again, ethical standards. Whether the top management is really ethically working or not. Leadership style, we have seen the greed. So, if the person is team oriented, then different culture. If the person is particular style of management, culture is different. Characteristics of members who are working in the group, who are working in the organization. From which society strata they come, whether they are all educated, whether they are all intelligent people, or whether they are semi-skilled or unskilled people. So this will decide the culture of the organization. So if you have organization like ISRO, for example, will have a altogether different culture because all the people who are working in that organization, they are the scientists. So they have a different culture than an organization, a steel plant, for example, where semi-skilled or unskilled workers are in majority, for example. So they will have a different culture. So these are the various determinants of culture. So what is important is the organization will have to create the culture deliberately by traditions, by uh, uh, setting up the value system, by setting the norms for behavior. And so organization customs, traditional, general way of doing things are largely they give birth to the culture. This leads to ultimate source of now, particularly the founders of that particular organization, they lay the foundation for the culture of the organization. And so the foundations or the founders of that particular, I'm giving you again and again example of Tata Group. So the founder of the organization, what value system and what vision and what norms he or she sets, that becomes the tradition and that becomes the culture of the organization. And so organizational cultures, it doesn't come from the air. It comes from the founders, it comes from the members, traditions that founders have. It comes in three ways. Founders hire and keep only those employees who think and feel the same way as they do. Infosys, for example, So the founders have their own, initially they recruited only those employees who have thinking of the same way. They socialize employees to way they are thinking. So the founders of the top management may socialize with the employees and the founder's own behavior. Most important, as I said, what you say, do you practice it? That is important. So the top management may expect a very highly ethical integrity from the lower rank of managers, and the top management may exhibit that they are not practicing integrity or ethical standards. So if the followers or if the people in the organization see that management is not ethical, then how they will become ethical or how they will follow integrity. So when organization succeeds, the founder's personalities become embedded in the culture. So Jamshedji Tata's norms, values, they have become embedded in the Tata Group. So that is how it is. So you have to keep the culture alive. How to keep the culture alive? Selecting or hiring practices, actions of top management. When the new recruits are there, telling them stories, training them in the culture of the organization. So, for police also they give the training. So, what is the culture of the police department or military training? So, they train the recruits in the culture of the military defense. So, training is important. And then the new recruit in the army is told various bravery stories of earlier people. So that the storytelling is very important in keeping the culture alive. So there are many ways organizations are following in order to keep the culture alive. So you must have proper selection of the people. Anything more? You must have proper selection of the people. Selection becomes allowing employer and applicant to avoid mismatch and to sustain organizational culture. So, as they say that even one rotten mango spoils the whole basket. So, while selecting the people for the organization, the HR manager will have to really see whether the person in front of him or her is compatible with the culture of the organization. So selection becomes important. Top management, actions of the top management through words, behavior, all the things. Senior executives, how they behave. Do they follow the ethical standards or value system of the organization? Socialization, no matter how good a job the organization does, recruiting new employees need help adapting to. So, how far the new employees are helped in imbibing the culture of the organization. And for this, the senior executives who are with the organization, they have to make the new recruits comfortable in the new culture of the organization. And how far this is successful, that will depend, and that will result in whether the new recruits they adapt the culture of the organization easily or not. So assigning peer coaches, holding social events, personalizing orientation, and giving out immediate work assignment. So if you recruit the person and if you don't give him any work assignment for a month or so, he's just sitting. That exhibits or that gives a wrong signal to the person concerned. And therefore, these are various means of socialization. Impact of organizational culture. Organizational culture is an asset. It can provide positive ethical environment and foster innovation. So, culture is an asset for the organization. It results in better customer satisfaction, particularly because employees are trained according. If the organization is customer oriented, that is the culture. Customer comes first. If that is the culture, then customer satisfaction will be their highest, and this results in the success of the organization, but culture as a liability. Culture can enhance organizational commitment, increase consistency with clearly benefit to the organization, but we should not ignore the potentiality of the functional aspect of culture, especially a strong one on an organization effect. So what is the negative effects? Institutionalization. So it becomes valued for itself and not for the good or services it produces. So what are the products of the organization are not much known. Only that organization is known by the people. Then that is called as institutionalization. So that organization takes its own life because people don't remember what are the products of the organization. They will only remember the organization. So that is institutionalization and barrier to change. Culture is liability when shared values do not agree with those of the. So many of times change is necessary, but because the culture is safe for over a period of time, people do not agree to change, and therefore it may become resistance to change. Barrier to diversity, age, gender, as I given you the example. In army, for example, the culture was women are not to be recruited. For example, the culture is like that. Now with court fight and all this, they have to agree to that. But culture is no women in army. So this is barrier to diversity. Okay. Strong culture. So you have prejudices at times. Very strong culture, people may have prejudices. Barrier to merger and acquisition. Nowadays, mergers and acquisitions mainly. In the earlier days, while mergers and acquisitions were taking place, they were mainly seeing whether this merger or acquisition will financially benefit the organization. Today, that is not only seen. Today, mainly culture is seen. I can give you one example. Earlier, when we used to fix up marriages, मुलगा चांगला आहे, घर चांगलं आहे, बस. Now what we are looking for, what is the culture of that family and what is the culture whether my daughter can get adjusted into that culture. That family mainly is a non-vegetarian family. My daughter is a vegetarian family. So how this will become compatible. So today these factors are also mainly these factors. So what is happening in our personal life is also thing. Today, why mergers and acquisitions are thought of, mainly compatibility of culture is thought. Mainly whether the two organizations are culturally compatible with each other. And if they are not, then no mergers or acquisitions are there. So this may be barriers. So this is about organizational culture. Change, I think this is very simple topic. Organizational change. Many changes bring a lot of stress to the people. For example, in banking, manual banking, and now computerized banking, this has brought stress to many people. They took voluntary retirement, many of them, because there was a lot of stress. And therefore, why change is necessary? Because today we are not in stable environments. All the time, the surrounding is changing at a very fast rate. And therefore, sometimes radical changes are necessary. Sometimes now, banking system radical change was necessary. So, change or die is the buzzword now. So, small changes or radical changes, but change is a must. Now, what are the forces for changes? Technology mainly. As the technology gets upgraded, you have to change it. So, change. Market situation. More competitors. Earlier, there were only one or two organizations or manufacturing companies manufacturing that particular product. Today, there are 20 of them. So your market situation has changed. So you have to change. Earlier, your marketing strategy was different. Today, it has to be different. You have to go on social media. For example, today, it's not only one-to-one marketing, but it's on social media, for example. So this is another political and social change. So the government changes, the policies changes, and according to that, you have to change. Social changes. So the society changes. More younger population is there in the market or in the as your customers. This is a social change, and you will have to change your product or your services because younger generation may expect something, some different features from the product or from the services. Economic scenario. So maybe the RBI increases the rate of interest, for example. So the credit has become costlier. So the earlier the policy was to take loan. Now don't borrow. Whatever you have internal resources, do with that. So economic scenario, what it is. Inflation rate, for example. So these are the economic scenarios which force change. These are external factors, external to the organization. Internal forces, performance gap. So expected performance and actual performance, there is a gap. So there needs to be some change to correct and to bridge this gap. Increase in size. Earlier, the size of the company was maybe 50 workers working. Today, the company has 1,000 workers. So the size has increased, the organization has grown. So it has to change its systems, it has to change its norms, and it has to change its various policies so that it is compatible with the size and the growth rate. Change in management. Another company takes over, A company takes over B company, for example. So now B company's management has become redundant and A company's management is managing the company. So they will make the necessary changes in the B company as per their policies, their culture, their value. So these are internal. What is the response to the change? There is individual response, maybe economic loss. So people may fear that if this change is there, we may lose economically. Our salary may get adversely affected. So there may be economic loss. If I am transferred from this place to my salary, as I have given you example, my salary remains the same, but you are from Nasik to Bangalore, for example. But then Bangalore, the cost of living is more than Nasik. So you have economic loss in that. So there is a change. The person is shifted, transferred from Nasik to Bangalore. So this change is there and that results in economic loss and therefore there is resistance. Uncertainty. So the change may bring uncertainty, computerization. For example, many people thought that computers will displace, will make them unemployed. So there is uncertainty and therefore we don't want computers. Misunderstanding and selective information passing. So the management is unable to pass on the correct and full information about the change to the people. And therefore the people misunderstand the change and therefore they resist. Habit. People are habituated to a particular set of working. And if you want to change that work setting, then resistance. Social displacement, as I said, the computers may force the company to ask people to leave. So this is social displacement, peer pressure. So if the person accepts the change, the other colleagues may say that why you are ready for this change. So there is a peer pressure to resist the change. Organizational resistance is also there. Threat to established power relations. So the present, when there is acquisition, for example, when the in company or when merger is there, for example, when the company is intending to merge with another company, and this is being discussed with the people in the company, then the people may resist because there is threat to power. In merged company, they may lose their authority. So there is threat to established power. Organizational structure, again in case of merger, for example, or if the company has grown and the new organizational structure comes into existence. Earlier, the person was able to immediately talk to the entrepreneur, for example, but now it is not possible. Structure. Resource constraints. Many times, resources have become scarce. Money, particularly, becomes scarce in this sunk cost. So today you are making that change, but the result of that change may come after 10 years, for example. So what is the cost for that 10 years? That is not very sure, and therefore organizations don't want to change. Inadequate information. So if my organization uses AI technology, for example, what will happen to my organization? But the management doesn't have adequate information about that, and therefore some organizations may resist AI technology. Okay, how to overcome the resistance? Communication. Give complete information. Make people aware as to why the change is being made and what will be the outcome of the change. Participation. Let the people participate in the decision making process so that they on their own agree for change. Building support and commitment. So it is the task of the management to build the support from the people around them. Develop positive relationship with the people in the organization. Implementing change fairly. When there is a change, the management must be able to convince the people that the result of the change will be fair to everyone. Manipulation and cooperation. So at times you have to manipulate certain things in order to get the cooperation of the people. Selecting people who accept the change. This is the most important thing. There are certain people in the organization who are ready for the change. Identify those people and let them become what we call as change agents so that they can convince others also that why change is necessary. So select people who are ready to accept the change, who are very proactive and who become the change agents. And last is coercion, that is by force. So if you force to change, then the resistance may become even more fierce. But then sometimes this is also done by the organizations. So there are various approaches to managing the change. Kurt Lewin argued that successful change in the organization should follow three steps. Unfreezing the status quo. First, what is right now? Unfreeze that status quo. What practices we are following right now? Stop those practices. Move to the desired state. So, what practices we want to follow? Move to that and rephrase the new change. So, again, those practices which are new, they make those practices stable. So, unfreezing is maintaining the status quo. Moving to desired state is taking the steps to change the present, and rephrasing is to make the new change permanent. So these are the three steps for making the change happen. Now, what is important is planning for change. For this to succeed, you must plan for it. change cannot come overnight, and therefore it should be a process, gradual process, and plan for that change. So if you want to implement, take for example, TQM in the organization. So the people are unaware about TQM technique, and people may fear that if TQM is there, we may lose. We may lose our incentives, or we may lose our some part of salary, whatever it is. Now, planning for change, so train the people first decide, then select the departments first, where the TQM will be implemented first. So, proper planning has to be. So, there are 3 steps in making the change. First is planning stage. Plan the change properly. Once you plan it, then implement it. So implement it as per the plan. Whatever planning you have done for the change, implement the same way. And third is feedback system. Take the feedback from the people. That how now they are looking at the change. So the management will come to know whether the people are really. See, instead of forcing the change, as we have seen the last option, this is the strategy, or this should be the strategy for change. The management should plan the change properly, implement it in the same way as it is planned, and then feedback system has to be there. So these are the 3 steps. So you have to manage the plan change, and that is how it should be done. So planning stage, make the requirement analysis, for example, SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So the management will have to make that SWOT analysis and identify whether there is really need to change. Many times change should not be for the sake of change. So whether that change will bring the desired, what is the desired outcome? Merger. Many mergers fail because it is not a planned merger. The desired goals are not articulated. And therefore, what is the desired goal of that change? Whether really change is necessary. As I said, change is, as we say, that change is the only permanent thing in this world, as we call it. But every time for every organization, whether change is necessary, consider that. And then, so in planning stage, when I'm saying planning stage, there the management will have to do the SWOT analysis of the organization. What are the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats? If we go for the change, whether our strengths will be strengthened more, whether the weaknesses will be reduced, whether we will have more opportunities, and whether our threats will be reduced. Then that changes advice. And so, making a SWOT analysis first is a must before you start planning for change. And therefore, change should not be for the sake of change, because it should not be for the whims and fancy of a person or persons. It should have real logic for why this change is being to be, or why this change is to be made. So you must be able to justify that change. That is it. And therefore, while planning the change, these things are to be considered, and then you can make people aware, you can train people, then you can find out the change agents in the organization, and you can implement the change. So that is all about change. So, 3 concepts we have.